Welcome to Arts Express. This is Prairie Miller, and on the show, Pacifica host Garland Nixon boards the Arts Express this week when it comes to figuring out the world of politics, parties, and personalities.
Hello, Garland Nixon here. And, if you've been paying attention to the news, there was these protests called Hands Off, which seemed to be, your traditional, I guess, protest run by the Democrat Party. And I think there could be some more to these protests than meets the eye. Let's talk. Hello, Garland here, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the hands-off protest. The hands-off protest, again, massive protests across the United States, anti-Trump, I think the foundation were anti-Trump and anti-Elon Musk. Let me start by saying this, and that is, there are a lot of things there that, as a person who's an old school lefty, that I would certainly agree with. I don't put Medicare, Social Security, or any of the traditional, what's called the entitlements, what people like me call the social safety net, things that help the working class and the poor, et cetera. I don't want those to be touched. People who know me know that, when it comes to constitutional rights, I'm very, very strict on my belief about constitutional rights, or unfortunately, they seem to be privileges. We thought they were rights, but if they're right, you can't take them, can they? So at any rate, there's, in the context of my politics, there's a lot of things there that I could look at and say, sure, I'm for that. Now, the issue of just being anti-Trump or anti-Musk is where I part ways from these people, because I used to say recovering Democrat. I'm a recovered Democrat. I'm to the left of the Democratic Party, and I just see the Democratic Party as part of the machine that wipes out all the things that I consider good. I'm an anti-war person, pro-Constitution person. So, as I said, unfortunately, it's not applied, but I wish the Constitution were applied, right? So here's my point. I'm not a right-winger. I'm to the left of the Democratic Party. But I'm highly suspicious of the Democratic Party simply because it has become the party of the intelligence age. Certainly, the Republican Party, I'm not saying that there's not a foundation there that's, the machine, and that's the establishment. That's why I don't belong to either party. But for this particular instance, it seems to me that the Democrats have really aligned themselves strong with the neocon foreign policy machine and the neocon pro-war international blob, right? Foreign policy blob. More so, here's what I mean. Now, I ain't defending Trump by any stretch of the imagination. I think he lied to people, and he lied to his followers about, how anti-war he was. I think that's already obvious. But my point being, there is an element in the Republican Party that is opposed to war and conflict. I don't know how big it is, but there's an element. There's nothing in the Democratic Party there anymore. And I'm opposed to both parties. I think we need third parties or independence or some kind of revolutionary change. But let's get down to the hands-off thing. Let's start here. The things that made me go, I also want to mention this for people who don't know. I'm a former law enforcement officer. You might not know that. So when I do investigations and start putting things together, I do have a background in that. I was for transparency purposes, former police officer, retired as a major, former commander of the investigations division. So while this isn't a major investigation, if somebody's saying this guy doesn't know what the hell he's talking about, this isn't really an investigation, but I know how to look into stuff and how to question stuff. Here's all I would say. We should all be suspicious of when it comes to our government and the things that are going on. How about that's just a start? Let's go. Look at this. So this is the first thing that caught a lot of people's attention. There was this hands-off thing, right? We must stop Trump and Musk's illegal billionaire power grab. The first thing I look at that is, it is the politics of personality. It's Trump and Musk that we must stop. Their billionaire power grab. Well, why is it that there's only some billionaires that are bad and some billionaires that are good? And it becomes what has been referred to as Bonapartism, you know what I mean? Where the billionaires class or the ruling elite say, well, we're going to muster all this huge group of civilians and citizens and working class people on behalf of this faction of the ruling elite. And this faction over here, they're going to muster all of these working class people with their faction of the ruling elite and have those bastards, poor bastards, fight each other before the wars that are going on between various factions of the ruling elite. So basically they're saying it's Trump and Musk is the problem. And people like me say the systemic part of it. We got systemic problems. It's not a particular, look, Biden was there. We were nothing but a war machine. Prices doubled. Everything went bad, right? And we're like, well, that's crappy. Trump comes in, he's starting wars again, and the tariffs, God only knows what's going to happen. Prices, it seems like we're going to deal with some of the same things. So if we just make it a personality issue, we miss the facts on the ground of what's actually happening to affect the working class. Let me continue. What caught my eye and so many people's eye, hands off, and you look right down here, veteran service, libraries, free speech, LGBTQ rights, immigrants, courts, Medicaid, right in the middle. Look at that. Hands off, right in the center, NATO. Hands off NATO. NATO is nothing but a war machine. And traditionally, it has been the U.S. empire's war machine. So now we have a supposedly, allegedly left-leaning coalition that's saying hands off NATO, the people who right now, there's something else you got to notice about that. Let me bring this up, right? As a person who considers if you're going to be on the quote left, it is critical to me to oppose war, because one of the reasons, as they say, we can't have nice things is because so much money goes to 1,000 bases. We spend $1 trillion and a half dollars minimum on war and on coercion around the world. So if you're going to consider yourself some kind of lefty standing up for the little guy, look, you can't say, let's throw all of this money into NATO and war and let's have nice schools, because that's not the way it works, right? Let's continue. So I thought, that's interesting. So I thought, let's look into this hands-off business, right? So let's do this. So what I'm going to do is run you through some of the things that I was looking at, and you can see what you think. So first of all, I realized, they've got a website, hands off. And of course, there you go, the politics of personality. Trump, Musk, right? And everything's Trump, Musk. Everything's Trump, Musk. Donald Trump and Elon Musk. You notice this. That's not significantly into policy. It is Trump, Musk, Trump, Musk, Trump, Musk, right? They're standing up against Trump, Musk. They just want different people. So we go to, there's where everything is. There's all kind of stuff. Now, here's what I thought. Well, who's behind this? Who's pushing it? Whatever. So if you look down the bottom, it says general inquiries are response@indivisible.org. And I thought, okay, so whoever is behind this is indivisible.org, because it doesn't say response at hands off 2025. See, they've got media advisories, but general inquiries, response@indivisible.org. So I said, okay, that means we got to search indivisible.org. So let's take a look at indivisible.org and see what we find, right? We're going to continue and we're going to look at indivisible.org. Okay, so you look there and it's all indivisible.org, democracy's under threat, blah, blah, blah. And you look down at Trump, Musk, everything's about Trump, Musk, join our weekly show, make a difference, all this kind of stuff, right? So I said, well, let's see who's behind that, who we are. Okay, that's important. We got to know who we are, right? We want to continue to figure this out. Let's keep looking. About us, our leadership, that's what I want to know. And what you find is their leadership are two people. One of the a woman named Leah Greenberg and Ezra Levin, right? And here's what's interesting about Greenberg and Levin. They're very, very popular amongst the machine. They're not just two putzes. Watch this. Let's do this. Here's what's interesting about them, about how popular they are. When they got married, look at this. The New York Times literally did an article on these people back in 2015. So they got married in 2015, friends first and always. And look, Leah Frances Greenberg, right, was married to Ezra Philip Levin, and it goes on their life, their fathers, this. Both of them have a history of working in nonprofits, but they all about their mother, where they met, the friendship of their, just a little thing about their life. He kissed me and I was very pleased, Miss Greenberg said, right? Isn't that weird? How many people do you know that just two people happen to meet and care? And the New York Times says, hey, let's do an article about Leah and Ezra, right? Okay, let's continue. Let's look a little bit more. We're going to go back to the two of them, and let's start with Leah Greenberg. I want to start with her for a reason. Leah Greenberg, so these are the people behind indivisible.org. These are the anti-Trump people, which is fine if you don't like Trump. I'm not a pro-Trump guy. I'm about policy, though. Policy. They just are mostly Trump. Let's take a look at Greenberg. Let's figure out who she is. Leah Greenberg. She's the co-founder and co-executive director of the Indivisible Project. Prior to founding the Indivisible Project, she served as policy director for the Tom Perello for Governor of Virginia campaign. Soros' foundation's top man. One of the most important operatives in the progressive advocacy universe, supporting the Biden administration policy objectives is leaving his perch. Tom Perello, the executive director of Open Society Foundation, will be departing. So, okay, here. You'll find the shopping to find. Leah Greenberg is a co-founder, blah, blah, blah. Prior to the individual, she served as policy director for the Tom Perello of Governor of Virginia. So she worked for the guy who was the executive director of Open Society Foundation. Now, not that that means anything. As a former investigator, here's what I'll say. That is not definitive proof of anything. The only thing it's definitive proof of is that she worked for him. What that means, I don't know. Now, let's continue. She has managed human trafficking grants and programs as an investment management for Humanity United, served as an advisor to the State Department's quadrennial diplomacy, the U.S. State Department. She was an advisor to the U.S. State Department. I can see where she found her love for NATO at the U.S. State Department. Now, the other thing that's interesting is, and you got to say this, how beloved she is by the system. The machine loves her and Ezra. Along with her co-founder and spouse, Ezra Levin, Leah has been featured as one of Time's 100 most influential people of 2019, included on GQ's 50 most powerful people in Washington, and ranked number 2 on the Politico 50 list of top thinkers, doers, and visionaries transforming American politics. So, add this to it. Time magazine loves her. GQ magazine loves her. Politico put her number 2 on the top 50 list of thinkers. And by the way, did I mention that when her and Ezra got married, just out of the blue, for no reason, the New York Times did an article on their marriage. Hey, look at this. Like they do, just two people meet and fall in love. And the New York Times, just does an article about them. And how wonderful it is. Oh, what a wonderful group. Isn't that nice? I feel so good. I feel special.
And coming up next on Arts Express.
Hayesville Sheriff's Office.
Sheriff? The sheriff line.
It's Chris Mully.
What can I do you for, Chris?
The guy's I did something stupid. We're at Willie's. Trouble?
Prank call.
You want me to get that?
People made their beds. They got a lie in them.
Pretty sure the saying is protect and serve, Sheriff.
Shut your mouth, smart guy. You're not funny.
Live brought us here.
Get your asses out of there, son. Put your balls on, Evan. We're going to Willie's.
Those were scenes from Willy's Wonderland, in which temperamental Beth Grant's Southern sheriffs in a showdown with Nicolas Cage. And Grant, our guest on the show, turns up this time as a gritty grandma teaming up with Kevin Bacon in the unusual supernatural crime noir thriller The Bondsman. Beth Grant pretty much needs no introduction. If you've seen Rain Man, Dragnet, Flatliners, The Golden Girls, Friends, The X-Files, Donnie Darko, 6 Feet Under, Little Miss Sunshine, No Country for Old Men, and as Andy Warhol's mother in Factory Girl, you've seen her, and in nearly 100 productions more. First, some scenes from The Bondsman, then a conversation with Beth Grant.
Did you die?
Yeah, I think maybe I did.
Mr. Halloran, I'm here about your new job orientation.
She knows things, Hub, about how you
Died and went to hell. You're only standing here now because we brought you back.
which is just plain silly.
What job, lady?
You're still a bounty hunter, but now you hunt demons for the devil.
I need to tell you something about your pastor.
Well, maybe it's not just about killing demons.
Run! You need to see this. There's a pattern.
Then call the hotline.
A 1-900 number charging $10 a minute.
What do you expect? It's hell.
Hello?
Hi,
Hi, remember me?
I do.
It's-
It's so nice to talk to you about something else.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. No, this is Beth Grant, and I'm all yours.
Great.
And all ears.
Okay. Oh, well, hello and welcome to our show again.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm thrilled to be here.
Okay. Now, what did you figure out about your Bondsman character, Kitty, alias Mama Bear, Kevin Bacon's mother, to get inside her head to play her?
I related to her immediately as a strong mountain woman and who loves her son unconditionally. And as you say, a mama bear. I felt, I just can't even explain, instant identification with her. I've known these women all my life. If I'd stayed back there, I could have been her. I could have been a Bells Bondsman. I could have had a son. I could have gotten in trouble. I could have lost my husband. Every single fact is absolutely possible for me to have lived that life. And, you know, they talk about the magic what if, and that was the easiest game to play. I didn't even have to go there. I didn't do anything except try to, you know, be supportive to Kevin, to listen on set, to pay attention, to learn my lines, obviously, to do the stunts, to do the action sequences, to give my all, and to, you know, it just felt like coming home in a profound way. And where we shot was less than an hour from where my parents, my grandparents, my great-grandparents, my great-aunt and uncle, the most important people in my early life, are buried. Georgia. And to go, I was able to go to that graveyard, that little country, well, small town, I won't call it country, but small town graveyard where, you know, they were, and to put flowers on all of their graves and to say, I'm home. I've come to tell the true stories here.
Yeah.
Because this woman, I mean, hell yeah, she'll get a sawed-off shotgun and kill a demon. She's saving her son's soul.
Now, when last we spoke, you went toe-to-toe with Nicolas Cage in Willy's Wonderland. So how would you compare and contrast going up against your formidable co-stars Nicolas Cage with Kevin Bacon in The Bondsman?
Oh, that's interesting. Well, I'll say one thing about both of them is they're so professional, and they are good. They are good leaders on the set and amiable. And you know, I've known Nick for a while. I did another movie with him, and so I was very comfortable with him. But they both are consummate professionals. Kevin's journey in this show and what he does with it as an actor. I mean, you know, he's a city boy from Philadelphia. but he's got goats on his farm. He's got llamas. He plays music and sings to them. So he's also a country boy. And I got that. The second I saw him, I knew that he was my son and that he could play a Southern. Not everybody can do that. And I did not see any part of him when I was working with him. He really was my son. And he had to play a lot of different things. I mean, he has action sequences. He did a 40-foot drop, the same drop that they did in Die Hard, that Alan Rickman did in Die Hard. Kevin did that on the show. He has to, kill a demon with a buzzsaw, which is in the trailer. When my husband and I are watching this show, we are laughing hysterically over kind of gory stuff. I don't know why it's so funny, but it made us laugh. I mean, there are times when it's like terrifying and you feel very uncomfortable. But then right after that, there'll be like the next line, there'll be humor. And so it's funny, it's hilarious. And he takes us on this journey, heartfelt. He's trying to be a good father. He's trying to be a good husband. He's trying to be a good son. He's trying to figure out, why he went to hell. He figures it out, He's on this journey to not just save himself, but to save his family. And, so it's a very unique tone. And I think that is different than what we were doing in the other movie, what Nick and I were doing. First of all, he has lines. Nick didn't have any lines in it. But, both consummate professionals. And I don't know why Kevin Bacon doesn't have an Oscar. Honestly, he is just one of our very best actors that ever lived, in my book. And I felt that before I did this. I've loved him ever since Diner.
Now, the main adversary for you and Kevin Bacon is a blue state villain from Boston turning up in Georgia. So would you say the Bondsman in any way reflects the red state, blue state division in the real world right now, and your own thoughts as someone hailing from a red state, Alabama?
Wow, I hadn't thought about that. I mean, that's a very good question. Very, very intuitive and astute. We didn't think about that at all. I didn't think about it. I didn't even think it. I just thought of him as somebody I hated. He was so easy to hate. The first scene we had together, I was just as mad at him as I could be. And it was over nothing, and I was complaining to my husband. He said, well, what's the problem? That's the scene. I said, oh, right, it's the scene. And poor Damon, he's actually a very sweet guy. But, you're acting this thing, and he is definitely the villain, the bad guy. He's, courting my son's wife, and they should be together. They made beautiful music together. They made a son together. I want them to be together, and here comes this guy. And he happens to also be a Red Sox fan. I don't want any Red Sox fans in my life and being with my grandson. So, yeah, I like Damon, but it's very easy to not like his character.
And what can you say about humanizing the often caricatured older women in movies and your grandmother character, Mama Bear, in The Bondsman, doing just that?
God bless you for saying that. God bless you. God bless you. God bless you for saying that. So what I wanted to do, I mean, it's all on the page. If it ain't on the page, it ain't on the stage. And, the show that Granger created, Eric, guiding these writers, setting this unusual tone and giving her substance and grounding her in reality, what a joy and a pleasure. I mean, you can ask my agent how quick I said yes. I said yes. I mean, I read that script so fast. I called her up. I said, yes, yes, yes. When do we have the meeting? I am still wildly enthusiastic for this project. I have such passion for it. Wherever they want me to go, I will be there. Kevin Bacon I'll follow him anywhere. And Eric and the whole crowd, they're just fabulous human beings. And I can't believe they've created something so unique and exciting. And all the women are real, down to earth, funny, strong, invincible. That's unusual.
And what are your memories of being part of Golden Girls, and especially that formidable B author?
Oh, man. She is formidable. Well, I got to do 2 episodes, just thrilled to death. The first one, I had just worked with Rue McClanahan at the Amundsen Theater out here. We had done a version of Picnic with Gregory Harrison, Michael Learned, and Jennifer Jason Leigh, who actually got me my first movie role, Jennifer Jason Leigh. We did this play together, and she brought John Stockwell to see me, and I was in this movie called Undercover. So anyway, little trivia on the side there. But I had become quite close to Rue, and so I knew her when I came on the set. And, of course, Betty White was everything that you would hope she is, just gracious and kind. And most of my work was with Betty. But at the table reads, you're right, B. Arthur was there, and I was such a huge fan. I loved Maud so much. And a lot of people said that I reminded them of B. Arthur, which is a great compliment. But I guess I can be Sheriff Lund in my personal life as well. But I was a bit intimidated by her. I did talk to her, and I think she had just won an Emmy, and I think I had voted for her, of course. And I think I remember congratulating her and saying, I was so thrilled. And she said, thank you very much. Boom, the door shuts. That's it. It's like, she wasn't that interested in discussing her long-awaited Emmy. But, what a great, fabulous actress. And so what an honor to work with those ladies. Wow. I've been very lucky. Yeah. I've had a wonderful career.
Oh, yeah. Now, I read that your trademark is considered, quote, almost always playing someone who is arrogant, conservative, a stickler for rules, or even downright evil. What are your thoughts about that description of you?
That's hilarious. I love it. Well, I will say, yes, they're not wrong. I have played a lot of those characters. Now, I've also played some very sweet mamas and some genteel Southern belles on One Mississippi I'm thinking of. I played a New York radio station manager in City Slickers with Billy, and I've done, I don't always play terrible, terrible people, but I've had my fair share. I know with Donnie Darko, I was just so excited to play the iconic Kitty Farmer. That role was just fabulous. And my husband said, you do know that this character is you. I said, what? What are you talking about? But he thinks that he thinks that I am a stickler for rules. I'm a Virgo. He's a Virgo. My best two friends are Virgos. And he says, because we're the only ones that can stand each other. And I do like things a certain way, certain order. But I'm also wild and crazy and friendly, and I love people on some days. On other days, no. I believe in the power of love. I try to be a channel of love every day. But, if people don't do it right, I tend to get a little ornery. That's true. Yeah, so I can understand my casting. Plus, I think, we're all given, as artists, a certain instrument. And I do have very angular features in my face. And so even when I'm in a great mood, people can think that I'm mad or upset. My daughter, when she was little, would say, Mama, why are you mad? Oh, no, I'm not mad. It's just my face. And I would start smiling. And since she was little, I have made a conscious effort to smile, so that people don't misunderstand.
Yeah. Okay, thank you so much, Beth Grant, for joining us on the show again.
Oh, I'm so glad to hear from you and talk to you again.
Yes, okay, bye.
Bye-bye, darling.
And coming up next on the show.
Brush up your Shakespeare. Start quoting him now. Brush up your Shakespeare.
Hi, this is Jack Shalom. Don't touch that dial, and welcome to another episode in our series of Shakespeare for the 21st century. It's Will's 461st birthday coming up April 23rd, and you might wonder, what does an author write after it seems like he's done it all? I thought it might be interesting to take a look at a lesser-known play of Shakespeare's, written very much towards the end of his playwriting career, called The Winter's Tale. It's a bittersweet story that defies the usual genre conventions and in its own way provides a few observations about how we might survive the traumas of our own time. Let's call this episode The Winter's Tale, preserving possibility in the wake of disaster. Now, to understand Shakespeare's later plays, such as The Winter's Tale, it's important to understand that Shakespeare was a very, very, very good playwright right from the start. From the beginning, Shakespeare succeeded in all of the usual genres, comedy, tragedy, and history, so that by the end of his career, with nothing left to prove, Shakespeare experimented and invented his own genres. He would mix tragedy and comedy in one play and take themes he had used earlier, but turn them upside down. In The Winter's Tale, Shakespeare takes a play about an irrationally jealous ruler, as in Othello, but after 3 acts of intense tragic circumstances, he flips the switch and ends up with something like a fairy tale. And yet it's not quite a fairy tale either, because the ending is not without a good measure of pain as well. So let's get to the story. Leontes, king of Sicily, has been host to his childhood buddy Polixenes, the king of Bohemia, for the last 9 months. Well, Polixenes insists it's time for him to go, but Leontes asks his wife, the Queen Hermione, to persuade his friend not to leave. Well, Hermione uses her charm and wit and words with Polixenes, and he finally agrees to stay. And then, inexplicably, Leontes became insanely, and I do mean insanely, jealous that his wife has been having an affair with his childhood friend, even to the point of suspecting that her forthcoming baby is not by him. Leontes soon starts wondering whether his 7-year-old son is really his. Now, unlike Othello, Leontes has no Iago egging him on. His jealousy is completely internal. When a loyal friend defends Hermione, Leontes replies, "Is whispering nothing? Is leaning cheek to cheek? Is meeting noses? Kissing with the inside lip? Is this nothing? Why, then the world and all that's in it is nothing. The covering sky is nothing. Bohemia, nothing. My wife is nothing. Nor nothing had these nothings if this be nothing." Leontes sends his pregnant wife Hermione to prison to await a public trial. And worse yet, after Hermione gives birth to a baby girl in prison, Leontes orders that the baby be taken to a remote area to expose it to the elements. Hermione's lady-in-waiting, Paulina, protests bitterly, though Leontes threatens to have her burnt as a witch. But Paulina replies, "I care not. It is a heretic that makes the fire, not she which burns in it." Well, Leontes agrees to find out what the Oracle of Delphi thinks about all this. Messengers come back with the Oracle's decision. Hermione is innocent. But Leontes declares the Oracle false. At this point, a servant announces that the royal son has died due to grief over his mother. And at that news, Hermione falls down in the courtroom, and Paulina pronounces her dead. Leontes, who takes the deaths as a sign from the gods, is chastened, and now deeply ashamed and full of repentance. But Paulina cries, "O thou tyrant, do not repent these things, for they are heavier than all thy woes can stir. Therefore, betake thee to nothing but despair. 1,000 knees, 10,000 years together, naked, fasting upon a barren mountain, and still winter in storm perpetual could not move the gods to look that way thou wert." Meanwhile, Paulina's husband, who had been forced by Leontes to leave Hermione's child in the remote countryside, abandons the baby only to be chased and be eaten by a bear. And even though an old shepherd stumbles across the abandoned baby, we might well think this play was a tragedy. But time intervenes. Literally, at the top of Act 4, a character named Time tells us that 16 years have intervened. Now, while time is often compressed and altered in Shakespeare's plays, nowhere else in his work is there a time gap like this. And all of a sudden, it's as if we are in a different play. It's no longer winter, but summer. Yes, time does amazing things. The child that the shepherd had found and taken in has become a beautiful young woman called Perdita, unaware of her true background. And she's now in love with a young man who is actually the son of Polixenes. And in an amazing series of coincidences, Perdita and her young man, along with the shepherd, end up traveling from Bohemia to Sicily, where they are welcomed at King Leontes' palace. Now, Leontes, still mourning and repenting for his crimes after 16 years, has given a vow to Paulina that he will never remarry without her approval. But soon Perdita's true identity as Leontes' abandoned child is eventually sussed out by the shepherds and Paulina, much to Leontes' amazement. In their happiness, Paulina has one request of the king and his guests, that they come over to her house to look at the statue of Hermione that has just been completed. At Paulina's home, the guests are amazed at how lifelike the statue of Hermione looks. And then, in a startling theatrical moment, the statue starts to move and come to life. But the only words Hermione says are not to Leontes, but to her daughter, Perdita. "Tell me, mine own, where hast thou been preserved? Where lived? How found thy father's court? For thou shalt hear that I, knowing by Paulina that the oracle gave hope thou wast in being, have preserved myself to see the issue." Leontes is humbled once again and begs forgiveness from Hermione and Polixenes, but he is too overwhelmed to go further than that now. There are too many stories to untangle, too many tales to be told. Leontes ends the play by saying, "Good Paulina, lead us from hence where we may leisurely each one demand an answer to his part, performed in this wide gap of time since first we were dissevered." It's been said that The Winter's Tale is about recovering from deep trauma, and perhaps there are a few things we might say here. First, while it's true that nothing could pay for the effects of Leontes' jealousy, it's clear that the women, in particular Paulina, Perdita, and Hermione, are now in control. Second, time is so important. As we leap over many years, we don't know what is going to be on the other side, what time will heal, and what wounds will remain. Despite all the reconciliations and perhaps miracles, Hermione's son is still dead. Yet on the other hand, things have changed. And most importantly, in times of real distress, we must hold on to and preserve our seeds of hope, as Hermione did and as Paulina did over many, many years. And it may take many allies and much mutual aid and people from different classes to help preserve what is valuable over a long period of time. But if we save the seeds, perhaps then they can eventually grow and we can move on to a new and better way of doing things. I've been speaking about William Shakespeare's The Winter's Tale. This is Jack Shalom for Arts Express with host Prairie Miller.
And now on Arts Express.
If we have to use force, it is because we are America. We are the indispensable nation. We stand tall. We see further into the future.
Madeleine Albright, U.S. Secretary of State, February 19th, 1999. I could bomb you every hour, irradiate with flowers, and mock you in disdain. It may be a bitter pillage when I cluster bomb your village, but Europe feels your pain. I will bomb you to obey me until you Rambouillet me, ethnic cleansing as we speak. Dan, I'd rather not report it. Tom Brokaw will distort it. Too bad Coburn's off this week. Oh, I won't tell you why we run hospitals and schools. Just remember the golden rule. Who's got the gold? They make the rule. I'm as tender as a kitten. When I am effing, roll banking on your chain. Structurally adjust ya, privatize and bust ya. Ooh, let me feel your pain. When someone's an empty kettle, steely-eyed and metal, rust in all the parts. New World Order up some oil for my friends who've been so loyal. If I only had a heart. And so I blow up all your bridges, short out electric ridges for Bechtel and Walmart. Pristine ain't so pristine, with uranium oxide misting my irradiated heart. Picture me a bombardier, invisible to all below, target-rich environment. And if I miss, who's gonna know? Milosevic is evil, so we kill 3,000 people. Worse than Hitler? What a perv. Russian sector? Can't oblige ya. I'm just a paper tiger until I get some noive. Primakov and Chernomyrdin, they won't get a word in their direction, let us fart. With my missiles all uranium, and my tanks made of titanium, and my access to your cranium, through the TV in your brainium, I'm more criminally insanium, cause I haven't got a heart. With Monica by my side, I've got courage to the core. Under the mistletoe, kiss me once and blow some more. And now Yashka Fisher, come here now. I could bomb you just a bissel, cruising on my missile, some red paint on my frown. Our new Luftwaffe may seem callous, but I say NATO over alles. My greens won't let me down. I could bomb you every hour, blast away the flowers, and mock you in disdain. It may be a bitter pillage when I cluster bomb your village. Oh, but Europe feels your pain. I will bomb you to obey me until you Rambouillet me, ethnic cleansing as we speak. Dan, I'd rather not report it. Tom Brokaw will distort it. Too bad Coburn's off this week. Oh, I won't tell you why we bomb hospitals and schools. Just remember the golden rule. Who's got the gold? They make the rule. I'm as tender as a kitten when I am effing, roll banking on your chain. Structurally adjust ya, privatize and bust ya. Ooh, let me feel your pain.
And coming up next,
this is Bro on the Global Literary Beat, Breaking Glass. And today's episode is the crime novel 2025, expanding and contracting at the same time. As times grow more dire, with a major recession looming, war and perhaps nuclear war always on the horizon, and the latest climate catastrophe filling each day's headlines, audiences are turning to the crime novel with increasing frequency. This popularity was much in evidence recently at what is perhaps the world's largest crime novel festival, the Quai du Polar in Lyon, which this year boasted 125 authors from 17 countries. Readers, the majority of them female, according to reader statistics and also according to the evidence in the crowds in Lyon, are showing up either because the noir or dark crime novel gives voice to feelings of a challenging and even deepening crisis, or because the cozy novel gives them an entertaining respite from the world. At the same time, the traits of the crime novel are seeping into other genres as well, with the festival's theme this year being Borders, or the crossing thereof. Panels featured crime novel authors discussing the environment and climate catastrophe, political fears about the future of democracy leading to novelists imagining of a future apocalypse, and horror with a panel tribute to Stephen King, whose book of short stories You Like It Darker has just been published in France. In Europe, the noir novel, embedded in national traditions, also crosses national boundaries. Given the popularity of the French roman policier, the country's dark version of the procedural, Italy's giallo, which with its yellow garish covers also encompasses horror, and Germany's creamy, which also blends historical and philosophical elements with the crime thriller. In France, sales of the crime novel have grown by 5% in the last 2 years, and mass popularity has increased, with 75% of those sales being in affordable paperbacks. Titles are mandated to be published in a cheaper version, according to a law passed in the 80s by the socialist Mitterrand government. The most popular subgenres are cozy crime and the high-concept thriller. However, all is not rosy. Crime novel publishing, as everywhere else, has been hit not necessarily with protectionism, but with temerity, as publishers are afraid in the current perilous economic climate. David Headley, a British literary agent who represents Scandinavian authors in England, said that it was much harder to bring in authors from outside Britain because publishers were risk-averse in this climate and less likely to commission translations. He pointed to Stieg Larsson's Millennium as a groundbreaking publication that put what is now called Scandi noir on the map and opened up the market for authors not only from Larsson's Sweden but also Denmark, Norway, and now Finland and Iceland. Can Greenland, with Dark Days looming, be far behind? Headley acknowledged that France has a vibrant noir tradition, but is still awaiting that huge novel that would open up French authors to the English-speaking market. Two authors whose books badly need to be translated, since they offer such a unique take on the genre, are the Finn Arttu Tuomen, whose novel All the Silences sheds light on Finnish collaboration with the Nazis, and the French crime writer Marin Ledoux, whose novel Henua equally exposes the barbarity of French colonialism in the Marquesa Islands, which 98% of the population did not survive. While what is called the Winter War between Finland and Russia at the beginning of World War II is much remarked upon, the aftermath, with the Finns joining Hitler's Operation Barbarossa and contributing to slaughtering civilians, turns up in the novel 80 years later. On the French side, Ledoux, who learned the Marquesa language and now also sports island tattoos, says that in his novel he's trying to dispel the romantic vision, partly propagated by the artist Gauguin, of docile, sensual natives who in the present struggle with the long-term effects of not only colonialism, but also French nuclear testing on the peninsula. The African-American author Attica Locke's Guide Me Home, the third part of her East Texas trilogy, begins with her Texas Ranger detective resigning from the force during the first Trump era, making his boss think, quote, there was something medically fragile, when really he was just profoundly, unimaginably sad in this new world. The author herself discussed the fear among African Americans about this new iteration of a Trump administration, while her book remarks upon the fragility of democracy in the U.S., in a country which dreamed up an institution of freedom on a foundation built by slaves. The Nigerian author Adenle Lay, who now lives in London and whose trilogy highlights Amaka, a female lawyer who protects sex workers against the most outrageous behavior of their ultra-rich clients, claimed that Lagos, where the action is set, has the best food on the planet. When Trouble Sleeps begins with a plane crash in a wealthy suburb, the place where the old money lived. These are the people, Lay says, who could get a senior officer relocated to the outlying Boko Haram for, quote, not understanding that the job of the police was to protect the rich. In his heroine Amaka's dealings with this class, she knows those representing this sedimented wealth are nothing but, quote, rich criminals. These people didn't need protecting. Ordinary Nigerians needed to be protected from them. On the same panel, Valerio Verrese put in his own claim for his city, Parma, being the food capital of the world with its delicately cured meats and cheeses. Verrese's Commissar Soneri loves to walk in the nearby Alps. which Varese explained were not only a gateway for Italians fleeing fascism during the Mussolini years, but also for those wanting a better life and more abundant work in France. Varese's inspector, out for a vacation in the dark valley, instead finds himself in the midst of a missing persons case involving a local magnate who exerts considerable influence in this mountain town where, quote, everything is linked to the pig farming business and even politicians come out smelling of pork and salami. Last but not least, the festival was treated to the jazz improvisations of the American novelist James Ellroy, who riffed on several subjects as he discussed his novel about the Kennedys and Marilyn Monroe, The Enchanters. The novel opens with the death of Marilyn, who Ellroy described as promiscuous, pretentious, and usurious in the extreme, knowing that this description would inflame his French audience who hold Monroe in high esteem. I'm a vulgarian, he said, trying to further outrage his listeners and claiming that the only contributions America has made to global culture were the hard-boiled novel, of which he said only he and its original practitioner, Dashiell Hammett, had any talent, and jazz. Jazz also describes the improvisatory quality of his writing, which in this case begins with the question around Monroe's death, that is, with a traditional melody, but then, as it follows Private Eye, an actual Hollywood figure, Freddie Otash, who describes himself as a seasoned peeper burglar, explodes into a series of hot vibrations that honk and wheeze in a cacophony of notes cascading against each other. Rather than truth-telling, which is the ambition of many of these novels, Ellroy simply wants to make you believe in these ramblings for the course of the read. The style is as outrageous as the assumptions, but in the end, his is just one voice at Leon among a host of others who want to both entertain and shed light on what is becoming an increasingly darker world, and one in which the noir novel both unveils its deepest secrets and maps the feelings of hope, despair, and anxiety that accompany a rapidly changing and often, in the noir vision, deteriorating landscape. This is Bro on the Global Television and Literary Beat, Breaking Glass. And I would like to put in a word for my new class on L.A. Noir, which begins May 2nd, and which you can register by going to the website of Institute for the Radical Imagination.
And that's all we have time for today on Arts Express, expression in the arts. And if you'd like to express yourself too, you can write to us at theradiogoddess@gmail.com. Until next time, this is Prairie Miller leaving the station.